Welcome to Stoic Vivu, where ancient wisdom meets modern living. This channel exists to transform your daily life through the practical philosophy that shaped emperors, guided slaves to freedom, and built the mental strength of history's most resilient people. We're not here to discuss abstract theories or complicated concepts. Instead, we focus on giving you specific, actionable practices that you can start using immediately to become stronger, wiser, and more at peace with yourself and the world around you. Today, we're diving into something truly transformative: 8 daily habits that the ancient Stoics used to build unshakable character and find meaning in even the most challenging circumstances. These aren't modern self-help techniques dressed up in philosophical language. These are the actual practices that Marcus Aurelius used while running the Roman Empire, that Seneca employed while navigating the dangerous politics of his time, and that Epictetus taught his students to find freedom even in the most constraining situations. You might be wondering why habits matter so much when we're talking about philosophy. The answer lies in understanding what philosophy meant to the ancient world. For the Stoics, philosophy wasn't something you studied in a classroom and then forgot about. It was a way of life that required daily practice, constant attention, and deliberate cultivation. Marcus Aurelius didn't become one of history's greatest leaders by reading about virtue once in a while. He developed specific morning routines, daily reflection practices, and evening review sessions that trained his mind to respond with wisdom rather than react with emotion. The same principle applies to your life today. You can read every book about Stoicism, watch countless videos about ancient wisdom, and understand all the theories perfectly. But until you develop consistent daily practices that actually rewire how you think and respond to challenges, that knowledge remains powerless to transform your experience. This is why the Stoics emphasized exercises and habits over intellectual understanding alone. What makes these 8 habits so powerful is that they work together as a complete system for daily living. When you start your morning by asking the right question, you set yourself up for better decision-making throughout the day. When you practice voluntary discomfort, you build the mental resilience needed to handle unexpected challenges. When you develop the habit of pausing before reacting, you create space for wisdom to guide your responses instead of letting emotions control your actions. Each habit we'll explore today comes directly from the writings and documented practices of the 3 greatest Stoic philosophers. You won't find any modern interpretations or contemporary additions. What you will discover are time-tested practices that have helped people navigate difficult relationships, overcome setbacks, find meaning in daily work, and maintain inner peace during turbulent times for over 2,000 years. These habits are designed to fit seamlessly into your existing routine, whether you're commuting to work in Chicago, managing a busy schedule in Los Angeles, or building relationships in New York. They don't require special equipment, extensive time commitments, or dramatic lifestyle changes. What they do require is consistency, honesty with yourself, and the willingness to practice ancient wisdom in modern circumstances. The goal isn't perfection. Even Marcus Aurelius struggled with these practices and wrote extensively about his failures and recommitments. The goal is progress, growth, and the gradual development of a character that can handle whatever life brings with grace, wisdom, and strength. Let's begin building that character together, one habit at a time. Habit 1. Morning question. You're lying in your Chicago apartment at 6:30 a.m., and your alarm has just gone off for the 3rd time. Your phone buzzes with notifications from overnight emails, social media updates, and news alerts. The familiar weight of another busy day ahead settles over you like a heavy blanket. You know you should get up, but instead, you reach for your phone and start scrolling through messages, letting the day happen to you rather than taking control of how it begins. This scene plays out in millions of homes across America every morning, but it represents something the ancient Stoics understood as one of life's most critical moments. How you begin your day doesn't just affect your morning. It sets the tone for every decision, interaction, and response you'll have for the next 16 hours. Marcus Aurelius recognized this truth so deeply that he developed a specific morning practice that shaped not only his personal character but his effectiveness as the leader of the Roman Empire. In his personal journal, which we now call Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about his morning preparations. He didn't just wake up and react to whatever the day brought him. Instead, he began each day by asking himself a fundamental question that oriented his mind toward excellence and purpose. This wasn't positive thinking or motivational self-talk. This was a practical exercise designed to activate what the Stoics called your ruling faculty, the part of your mind that governs how you perceive, interpret, and respond to everything that happens throughout your day. The specific question that Marcus Aurelius used, and that you can begin using immediately, is this: what would I do if this were my last day to be excellent? This single question transforms your morning from a passive reaction to circumstances into an active choice about character. When you ask yourself this question before getting out of bed, your mind immediately shifts from complaint mode to opportunity mode. Instead of dreading the traffic, the difficult coworker, or the overwhelming to-do list, you start thinking about how each situation becomes a chance to practice virtue and demonstrate the kind of person you want to be. Understanding why this question works requires grasping a fundamental Stoic principle about human psychology. Your brain is constantly scanning for evidence to support whatever story you tell yourself about your day. If you wake up thinking about everything that might go wrong, your mind will find plenty of evidence throughout the day to confirm that negative narrative. However, when you begin by asking how you can be excellent, your consciousness becomes alert to opportunities for wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline in every encounter. The implementation of this morning question habit follows a specific sequence that takes less than 2 minutes but transforms how you approach the entire day. The moment you become conscious of being awake, before checking your phone or getting out of bed, you ask yourself the question. Then you spend 30 seconds considering what excellence would look like in the specific challenges you know you'll face that day. If you have a difficult presentation at work, excellence might mean thorough preparation and calm confidence. If you're dealing with a relationship conflict, excellence might mean listening with genuine openness and responding with patience rather than defensiveness. After considering your opportunities for excellence, you make one specific commitment about how you'll demonstrate virtue in the most challenging situation you expect to encounter that day. This isn't about being perfect or never making mistakes. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote extensively about his failures and shortcomings. The commitment is about consciously choosing to use whatever happens as raw material for building character rather than letting circumstances determine your responses. The power of this practice becomes evident when you contrast it with how most people start their days. The average American checks their phone within minutes of waking up, immediately filling their mind with other people's priorities, problems, and perspectives. By the time they're fully awake, they're already in reaction mode, responding to external demands rather than operating from their own sense of purpose and values. The morning question habit reverses this pattern by establishing your character as the foundation from which you'll engage with everything else. To track your progress with this habit, use a simple system that Marcus Aurelius would recognize. Each evening, write down how well you remembered to ask the morning question and whether you followed through on your commitment to excellence in your most challenging situation. Rate yourself not on whether you were perfect, but on whether you were intentional about choosing character over convenience, wisdom over impulse, and long-term virtue over short-term comfort. The modern applications of this ancient practice extend far beyond personal satisfaction. When you consistently begin your day by asking how you can be excellent, you develop what psychologists now call an internal locus of control. This means you see yourself as the primary factor in determining your experiences rather than feeling like a victim of circumstances. This shift in perspective affects everything from your professional effectiveness to your relationship satisfaction to your overall sense of meaning and fulfillment. Consider how this habit transforms common daily challenges. When you're stuck in Los Angeles traffic, instead of getting frustrated about something completely outside your control, you remember your morning commitment to excellence and use the time for reflection, gratitude, or planning. When a coworker in your New York office sends a critical email, instead of reacting defensively, you pause and ask how excellence would respond to this situation. The traffic and the critical email haven't changed, but your relationship to these experiences has been fundamentally transformed by how you began your day. Ultimately, the morning question habit represents the Stoic understanding that freedom comes not from controlling external circumstances, but from taking complete responsibility for your internal responses. When you wake up each day asking how you can be excellent, you're practicing the same discipline that enabled Marcus Aurelius to lead with wisdom during plagues, wars, and political upheavals. You're developing the same character strength that allowed ordinary people throughout history to find meaning and dignity in even the most difficult circumstances. Building on this foundation of intentional daily beginning, we can now explore how the ancient Stoics used physical discipline to strengthen the mental qualities that your morning question helps you identify and commit to practicing. Habit 2. 5-minute physical challenge. You're sitting comfortably in your Los Angeles apartment, wrapped in your favorite blanket with a steaming cup of coffee in hand. The morning sunlight streams through your windows, creating the perfect atmosphere for a relaxed start to the day. Your body feels warm, comfortable, and completely at ease. Then you remember your commitment from yesterday to take a cold shower this morning, and suddenly every excuse imaginable floods your mind. Maybe you could skip it just this once. Maybe cold showers aren't really that important. Maybe comfort is exactly what you need right now. This internal negotiation happens millions of times every day across America, but it represents far more than a simple choice between comfort and discomfort. What you're experiencing in that moment is the eternal battle between your higher self and your immediate impulses, between the person you want to become and the person you currently are. The ancient Stoics understood this battle intimately and developed a specific practice that modern science now confirms as one of the most effective ways to strengthen what researchers call willpower, self-discipline, and emotional regulation. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest Stoic philosophers and advisor to emperors, wrote extensively about what he called voluntary hardship training. In his letters to Lucilius, he explained a principle that would transform how you think about physical challenges. Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, Is this the condition that I feared? Seneca wasn't promoting suffering for its own sake. He was teaching a fundamental truth about human psychology that modern neuroscience has confirmed. When you voluntarily choose temporary discomfort, you literally rewire your brain to handle involuntary discomfort with greater ease and wisdom. The specific practice that Seneca and his fellow Stoics used, and that you can implement immediately, is the daily 5-minute physical challenge. This isn't about becoming an athlete or achieving fitness goals, though those benefits often follow naturally. This is about training your mind to override your body's immediate preferences when doing so serves your long-term character development and life goals. Every morning, for exactly 5 minutes, you deliberately choose a form of physical discomfort that your body would naturally prefer to avoid. The most accessible version of this practice for modern Americans is the cold shower challenge. For 5 minutes each morning, you turn the water to uncomfortably cold and remain under the stream while focusing your mind on staying calm, breathing steadily, and maintaining control over your thoughts and reactions. Your body will protest loudly. Your mind will generate countless reasons why this is unnecessary, unhealthy, or impossible to continue. This is exactly the point. You're not just training your body to handle cold water. You're training your mind to maintain composure and clear thinking when everything in your system is demanding that you quit, complain, or escape. The implementation protocol follows a specific progression that respects both safety and effectiveness. During your first week, start with 30 seconds of cold water at the end of your regular warm shower. Focus entirely on controlling your breathing and maintaining calm awareness rather than fighting against the sensation. In week 2, extend to 1 minute. By week 3, work up to 2 minutes. Continue this progression until you reach the full 5-minute practice. The key is consistency rather than intensity. It's better to do 30 seconds every single day than to attempt 5 minutes once and then quit the practice entirely. Alternative forms of this habit work equally well for building mental discipline. You might choose 5 minutes of challenging physical exercise like push-ups or planks. Perform to the point where your body wants to quit, but your mind chooses to continue. You could select 5 minutes of uncomfortable but healthy food choices, like eating vegetables you dislike but know are beneficial. Some people prefer 5 minutes of sitting in an uncomfortable position while maintaining perfect posture and calm breathing. The specific form matters less than the consistent practice of choosing temporary physical discomfort to strengthen long-term mental resilience. Understanding the deeper purpose of this practice reveals why Seneca considered it essential for anyone seeking wisdom and inner strength. When you regularly practice overriding your body's immediate preferences, you develop what the Stoics called the ruling faculty, the part of your mind that governs all your other mental processes. This faculty grows stronger each time you choose long-term benefit over short-term comfort, each time you maintain calm awareness in the face of physical or emotional discomfort, and each time you prove to yourself that you can handle more challenge than your initial impulses believe possible. The modern applications of this ancient practice extend into every area of life where mental toughness makes the difference between success and failure. When you've trained yourself to stay calm and focused during 5 minutes of cold water, handling a difficult conversation with your boss in Seattle becomes much more manageable. When you've proven to yourself that you can override physical discomfort through mental discipline, resisting the urge to check social media during important work projects requires much less willpower. The practice creates what psychologists call stress inoculation, deliberate exposure to manageable challenges that build your capacity to handle unexpected difficulties with greater composure and effectiveness. To track your progress with this habit, Maintain a simple daily log that records whether you completed your 5-minute challenge and how well you maintained mental calm during the experience. Rate your mental state during the practice on a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 represents complete mental chaos and 5 represents perfect calm awareness. Notice how your ratings improve over time, and more importantly, notice how your ability to handle other forms of stress and discomfort increases throughout your daily life. The physical challenge habit also serves as a bridge between your morning question practice and the other Stoic habits you'll develop. When you start each day by asking how you can be excellent, and then immediately demonstrate to yourself that you can choose character over comfort, you establish a powerful psychological foundation for making wise decisions throughout the rest of your day. You prove to yourself, through direct experience rather than positive thinking, that you have the strength to choose what's right over what's easy. In essence, the 5-minute physical challenge represents the Stoic understanding that mental strength, like physical strength, must be developed through regular practice rather than occasional effort. When you consistently choose temporary discomfort in service of long-term character development, you're following the same path that enabled Seneca to maintain dignity during political persecution, courage during exile, and wisdom during the chaotic final years of his life. This disciplined approach to voluntary hardship naturally prepares you for mastering the next crucial Stoic practice, learning to instantly distinguish between what you can control and what lies beyond your influence, a skill that transforms how you respond to every challenging situation you encounter. Habit 3. 3-second control check. You're driving through Manhattan traffic on your way to an important meeting, and you've been sitting in the same spot for 10 minutes. The GPS estimated 15 minutes for this trip, but now it's showing 35 minutes with construction delays you couldn't have predicted. Your heart rate starts climbing as you think about arriving late, making a bad impression, and potentially losing an opportunity you've worked months to secure. Your hands tighten on the steering wheel, frustration builds in your chest, and you find yourself mentally rehearsing apologies and excuses while honking your horn at cars that can't move any more than you can. This scenario represents one of the most common sources of daily stress for millions of Americans, but it also illustrates a fundamental misunderstanding about where your power actually lies. In this moment, you're expending enormous mental and emotional energy on something completely outside your influence while ignoring the one thing that remains entirely within your control: how you choose to respond to circumstances you cannot change. The ancient Stoics developed a simple but revolutionary practice that transforms how you handle every challenging situation by helping you instantly identify where to focus your limited time, energy, and attention for maximum effectiveness. Epictetus, who understood powerlessness more deeply than perhaps any philosopher in history, having lived as a slave before gaining his freedom and becoming one of Rome's most respected teachers, articulated what became the foundation of all Stoic practice. In his discourses, he wrote, "Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are our opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, position, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." This distinction, which the Stoics called the dichotomy of control, becomes the basis for the 3-second control check that can revolutionize how you experience daily challenges. The specific practice that Epictetus taught his students, and that you can begin using immediately in any stressful situation, is deceptively simple yet profoundly transformative. The moment you notice stress, frustration, anxiety, or any form of emotional disturbance, you pause for exactly 3 seconds and ask yourself one fundamental question: Is this situation something I can directly control, or is it something I cannot control? This brief pause creates space between your initial emotional reaction and your chosen response, allowing wisdom rather than impulse to guide your next actions. Understanding why this 3-second pause works requires grasping a crucial insight about human psychology that modern neuroscience has confirmed. When you encounter a stressful situation, your brain's emergency response system activates faster than your conscious reasoning ability. This means your emotional reaction begins before your rational mind has a chance to evaluate whether that reaction serves your best interests. The 3-second control check interrupts this automatic process and engages what researchers call your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive decision-making, long-term thinking, and emotional regulation. The implementation of this habit follows a specific protocol that becomes automatic with consistent practice. First, you develop awareness of your stress signals, the physical sensations, emotional changes, or mental patterns that indicate you're beginning to react to challenging circumstances. Common signals include muscle tension, rapid heartbeat, racing thoughts, or the urge to complain, blame, or escape. Second, the moment you notice these signals, you literally count to 3 while taking one slow, deep breath. Third, during those 3 seconds, you categorize the situation using Epictetus' fundamental distinction: controllable or uncontrollable. If the situation falls into the controllable category, you immediately shift your focus to identifying specific actions you can take to improve the circumstances or your response to them. In the traffic example, controllable elements might include calling ahead to reschedule, using the time for productive thinking or planning, practicing calm breathing to maintain composure, or choosing to view the delay as an opportunity for patience rather than a personal attack on your schedule. If the situation is uncontrollable, you consciously release your mental and emotional investment in changing what cannot be changed and redirect that energy toward aspects of your experience that remain within your influence. The power of this practice becomes evident when you realize how much of your daily stress comes from unconsciously trying to control uncontrollable circumstances. Consider how this applies to common modern challenges. When you're frustrated with your coworker's attitude during your Chicago office meeting, the 3-second check helps you recognize that their mood and behavior are uncontrollable, but your responses, professional boundaries, and emotional state remain entirely within your power. When you're anxious about a job interview outcome, the pause reveals that the interviewer's decision is uncontrollable, but your preparation, performance, and mental approach are completely up to you. The modern applications of this ancient practice extend far beyond stress management into every area where clarity and effectiveness matter. In relationships, the control check prevents you from wasting energy trying to change other people's opinions, emotions, or choices while helping you focus on being the kind of person you want to be, regardless of how others behave. In professional settings, it helps you distinguish between genuine problems you can solve and external factors you can only respond to with wisdom and adaptability. In personal challenges, it reveals the difference between productive concern and unproductive worry. To track your progress with this habit, maintain a simple daily record of how many times you remembered to pause and apply the 3-second control check when facing stressful situations. Note whether you correctly identified the controllable and uncontrollable elements, and whether this clarity led to more effective responses. Initially, you may only remember to use this practice after you've already reacted emotionally, but with consistency, you'll develop the ability to pause before reacting, transforming your relationship with challenging circumstances. The 3-second control check also serves as preparation for more advanced Stoic practices by training your mind to operate from wisdom rather than emotion during difficult moments. When you consistently practice distinguishing between controllable and uncontrollable elements, you develop what the Stoics called practical wisdom, the ability to see situations clearly and respond in ways that align with your values and long-term well-being rather than your immediate impulses and preferences. This practice represents the Stoic understanding that freedom comes not from getting what you want, but from wanting what you have control over. When you master the ability to instantly focus your energy on controllable elements while releasing attachment to uncontrollable outcomes, you develop the same inner strength that enabled Epictetus to find dignity and purpose even during the most constraining circumstances of his life. Consequently, this foundation of clear thinking about control naturally prepares you for the next crucial practice: developing a systematic approach to responding with virtue and character when faced with difficult people and challenging interpersonal situations. Habit 4. Virtue Response Formula. You're sitting at your desk in your Seattle office when an email notification pops up on your screen. The message is from your supervisor, and the subject line immediately makes your stomach drop. Major issues with your project proposal. As you read through the email, each sentence feels like a personal attack. Your supervisor questions your research, criticizes your methodology, and suggests that your work might need to be completely redone. Your face flushes with heat, your jaw clenches, and your mind immediately starts crafting a defensive response that will point out all the ways your supervisor is wrong, unfair, and unreasonable. This moment represents a crossroads that every person faces dozens of times each day, though we rarely recognize its significance. In the space between receiving criticism and responding to it, you have the opportunity to demonstrate who you really are beneath the surface of your immediate emotional reactions. Your response in this moment will either move you closer to the person you want to become or reinforce patterns of behavior that you probably wish you could change. The ancient Stoics understood this crossroads so deeply that they developed a systematic approach to ensure that their responses reflected their highest values rather than their immediate impulses. Marcus Aurelius, who faced criticism, betrayal, and opposition daily as the Roman emperor, wrote extensively in his personal journal about the challenge of responding with character when others behave badly. He recognized that other people's actions, words, and attitudes lay completely outside his control, but his responses remained entirely within his power to choose. In Meditations, Book 4, he developed what modern practitioners can adapt into a practical response system. How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. This insight becomes the foundation for a structured approach to handling difficult interpersonal situations with wisdom rather than emotion. The specific practice that Marcus Aurelius used, which you can implement immediately in any challenging interaction, involves a systematic pause that engages what the Stoics called the 4 cardinal virtues before crafting your response. Instead of reacting from hurt, anger, or defensiveness, you deliberately filter your response through wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. This creates what we can call the virtue response formula, where each letter represents a specific question that transforms how you engage with difficult people and situations. The V in virtue stands for values alignment, where you ask yourself, does my planned response reflect the person I want to be and the values I claim to hold? This question immediately shifts your focus from what the other person did wrong to who you want to be, regardless of how others behave. In the email example, values alignment might mean responding professionally even when you feel personally attacked, because you value integrity and excellence over winning arguments or protecting your ego. The I represents impact consideration. What impact will my response have on this relationship, this situation, and my long-term goals? This question helps you think beyond the immediate satisfaction of expressing your frustration to consider whether your response moves you closer to or further from outcomes that actually matter to you. A defensive, angry email might feel satisfying to write, but it could damage your professional relationship and reputation in ways that far outweigh any momentary emotional relief. The R stands for respect maintenance. How can I respond in a way that maintains respect for both myself and the other person, even if I disagree with their approach? This doesn't mean accepting unfair treatment or agreeing with criticism you believe is wrong. Instead, it means finding ways to stand up for yourself and express your perspective that demonstrates strength through composure rather than weakness through emotional reactivity. The T represents truth-seeking. What truth might exist in this criticism or challenge, even if it's delivered poorly? This question requires genuine intellectual humility and the courage to examine whether valid points exist beneath harsh or unfair presentation. Often, difficult feedback contains useful information that can help you improve, even when the delivery method feels personal or unprofessional. The U stands for understanding attempt. What circumstances, pressures, or perspectives might explain why this person is behaving this way? This doesn't excuse poor behavior, but it helps you respond from understanding rather than assumption, which typically leads to more effective communication and better outcomes for everyone involved. The E represents excellence focus. How can I use this challenging interaction as an opportunity to practice excellence and demonstrate character? This final question transforms every difficult situation into a chance to strengthen your virtue and build the kind of character that remains steady regardless of external circumstances. The implementation of this virtue formula follows a specific timing that prevents emotional reactions while ensuring authentic responses. When you encounter criticism, conflict, or any interpersonal challenge, you pause before responding and systematically work through each element of the formula. This typically takes between 30 seconds and 2 minutes, depending on the complexity of the situation. The key is completing this internal process before crafting your actual response, whether that's an email, a conversation, or even your internal attitude toward the situation. Understanding why this structured approach works requires recognizing a fundamental principle about human psychology that the Stoics understood intuitively and modern research has confirmed. When you're emotionally activated, your brain's stress response system takes control of your behavior, often leading to responses that you later regret or that don't serve your actual interests. The virtue formula interrupts this automatic process and engages your higher-order thinking abilities, allowing you to respond from your values and wisdom rather than your immediate emotional state. The modern applications of this ancient practice extend into every relationship and professional situation where your character and effectiveness matter. In family conflicts, the formula helps you respond as the parent, spouse, or sibling you want to be rather than simply reacting to frustration or hurt feelings. In workplace challenges, it enables you to maintain professionalism and focus on solutions even when dealing with difficult colleagues or unfair situations. In social situations, it helps you handle disagreements, misunderstandings, and conflicts in ways that strengthen rather than damage your relationships. To track your progress with this habit, maintain a record of challenging interpersonal situations where you remembered to use the virtue formula before responding. Note which elements of the formula you found most difficult to apply and which led to the most positive outcomes. Over time, you'll develop the ability to move through this process quickly and naturally, making virtue-based responses your default approach to interpersonal challenges. The virtue response formula represents the Stoic understanding that your character is revealed not by how you behave when everything is going well, but by how you respond when others challenge, criticize, or treat you unfairly. When you consistently choose responses that reflect your highest values rather than your immediate emotions, you develop the same inner strength that enabled Marcus Aurelius to lead with wisdom and integrity, even when surrounded by political intrigue, personal betrayal, and constant criticism. This systematic approach to challenging interactions naturally prepares you for the next essential practice: developing a daily reflection routine that helps you process experiences, learn from mistakes, and maintain consistent progress toward becoming the person you want to be. Habit 5. Evening 3 questions. You're settling into your Miami apartment after a long day, your phone still buzzing with notifications from social media, work emails, and news updates. The television provides background noise while you scroll through your feeds, half watching content that doesn't really interest you but somehow keeps your attention. Your mind feels cluttered with fragments of conversations, unfinished tasks, and vague anxieties about tomorrow's responsibilities. You know you should probably get ready for bed soon, but instead you find yourself in that familiar evening routine of mindless consumption, letting the day end without any real reflection on what happened, what you learned, or how you want to approach tomorrow differently. This scenario plays out in millions of American homes every night, representing a massive missed opportunity that the ancient Stoics recognized as crucial for personal development and character formation. The way you end your day determines not only the quality of your sleep and your readiness for tomorrow, but also whether you're actively learning from your experiences or simply accumulating them without growth. The evening hours provide a unique window for honest self-examination, deliberate learning, and conscious preparation for continued improvement. But most people let that window close without taking advantage of its transformative potential. Seneca, who managed enormous responsibilities as advisor to Emperor Nero while maintaining his philosophical practice and writing, understood that the evening represented the most important time for reflection and learning. In his letters to Lucilius, he described his own daily practice with remarkable specificity. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine the whole day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by. Seneca wasn't simply reviewing his day out of curiosity or habit. He was engaged in what modern psychologists would recognize as deliberate practice for character development, using systematic reflection to identify patterns, extract lessons, and make conscious commitments for improvement. The specific practice that Seneca used, which you can implement immediately to transform how you process daily experiences, involves asking yourself 3 essential questions each evening before sleep. These questions, drawn directly from classical Stoic practice but adapted for contemporary life, create a structured reflection process that converts random daily experiences into deliberate learning and character development. The 3 questions work together as a complete system for honest self-examination, practical learning, and intentional preparation for continued growth. The first question focuses on character assessment. Where did I act in alignment with my values today? And where did I fall short of the person I want to become? This question requires complete honesty about your actual behavior rather than your intentions or your self-image. You examine specific moments throughout the day when you chose courage over comfort, wisdom over impulse, justice over self-interest, or temperance over excess. Equally important, you identify moments when you acted from habit, emotion, or convenience rather than from your considered values. This isn't about judgment or self-criticism, but about clear-eyed recognition of patterns that support or undermine your character development. The second question emphasizes learning extraction. What did I learn about myself, others, or life in general that I can apply to future situations? This question transforms every experience, whether positive or negative, into raw material for wisdom development. Perhaps you discovered that you work more effectively during certain hours of the day, or that specific types of conversations drain your energy while others energize you. Maybe you noticed that your mood affects your decision-making quality, or that certain environments support your best thinking. The key is identifying specific, actionable insights rather than vague generalizations about your day. The third question centers on forward preparation. What is one specific way I can practice virtue or wisdom tomorrow based on what I learned today? This question prevents reflection from becoming purely backward-looking analysis by connecting today's insights to tomorrow's opportunities for growth. If you notice that you interrupted others during conversations, tomorrow's commitment might involve consciously practicing listening skills during your scheduled meetings. If you realize that you avoided a difficult conversation that needed to happen, tomorrow's virtue practice might focus on courage and honest communication. Understanding why this three-question evening practice works requires recognizing several principles about learning and behavior change that the Stoics understood intuitively. First, reflection without structure often becomes either self-congratulation or self-criticism rather than useful analysis. The three questions provide a framework that ensures balanced, constructive self-examination. Second, experiences that aren't consciously processed tend to repeat themselves without generating wisdom. The evening questions transform daily events into learning opportunities that compound over time. The implementation of this evening reflection follows a specific protocol that maximizes its effectiveness while respecting the practical constraints of busy modern life. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes each evening, preferably in the same location and at the same time to establish consistency. Turn off all electronic devices to eliminate distractions and create mental space for honest reflection. Work through each question systematically, writing down your answers rather than simply thinking about them. The physical act of writing engages different parts of your brain and creates a record that allows you to track patterns and progress over time. To deepen the value of this practice, consider the broader context in which you're asking these questions. You're not trying to achieve perfection or eliminate all mistakes from your life. Instead, you're developing what the Stoics called practical wisdom through systematic attention to your actual experience. Marcus Aurelius filled his personal journal with similar reflections, recording his struggles, insights, and commitments in writing that was never intended for public consumption. His meditations reveal a man constantly working to improve himself through honest self-examination and deliberate practice. The modern applications of this ancient evening practice extend far beyond personal satisfaction into every area where growth and effectiveness matter. Professional development accelerates when you consistently extract lessons from workplace interactions, project outcomes, and leadership challenges. Relationships improve when you regularly examine your communication patterns, emotional reactions, and opportunities for greater understanding and compassion. Health and fitness goals become more achievable when you reflect honestly on what supports and undermines your commitments to physical well-being. To track your progress with this evening reflection habit, maintain consistency rather than perfection as your primary measure of success. Record whether you completed your 3 questions each evening and notice patterns in your answers over time. You may discover recurring themes in your character challenges, consistent types of learning opportunities, or specific areas where you want to focus your virtue practice. This meta-reflection on your reflection process compounds the benefits of the evening practice itself. The evening 3 questions represent the Stoic understanding that wisdom comes not from accumulating experiences but from consciously learning from them. When you consistently end each day by examining your character, extracting lessons, and preparing for growth, you're following the same path that enabled Seneca to maintain philosophical clarity while navigating the dangerous complexities of Roman political life. This daily practice of conscious reflection naturally prepares you for the next crucial skill, developing the ability to evaluate relationships and social connections with the same systematic attention you're now applying to your personal character development and daily learning. Habit 6. Relationship Evaluation Test. You're walking out of a restaurant in Denver after meeting with a longtime friend, and something feels off about the entire interaction. Throughout dinner, the conversation kept circling back to your friend's complaints about work, family, and various people who had supposedly wronged them. When you tried to share your own recent challenges, the topic quickly shifted back to their problems. You left feeling drained rather than energized, confused rather than inspired, and somehow smaller rather than more confident about your own life and goals. As you drive home, you find yourself questioning whether this friendship is actually adding value to your life or simply consuming your emotional energy without providing meaningful support in return. This experience represents a crossroads that many Americans face regularly but rarely address systematically. The people you spend time with profoundly influence your thoughts, emotions, goals, and character development, yet most individuals never deliberately evaluate whether their relationships are moving them toward or away from the person they want to become. The ancient Stoics understood that friendship and social connections were among the most important factors in developing wisdom and virtue, but they also recognized that not all relationships serve this higher purpose. They developed specific criteria for evaluating social connections that can transform how you think about the people you allow into your closest circle. Marcus Aurelius, despite his position as Roman emperor with access to countless people seeking his attention and favor, wrote extensively about the challenge of identifying genuine relationships amid a sea of superficial connections. In Meditations, Book 6, he warned, "Avoid false friendship at all costs. Nothing is more painful. Nothing is worse." This wasn't casual advice from someone who had never experienced betrayal or disappointment. Marcus had endured the attempted coup by Avidius Cassius, one of his most trusted generals and closest friends, which taught him the crucial importance of evaluating relationships based on character and mutual growth rather than convenience or social advantage. The specific practice that Marcus Aurelius developed, which you can implement immediately to assess the quality of your social connections, involves a systematic evaluation process that takes less than 2 minutes but reveals profound truths about whether specific relationships support or undermine your character development. This ancient relationship test examines 3 fundamental aspects of human connection that determine whether time spent with someone strengthens or weakens your ability to live with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. The first criterion focuses on mutual growth and learning. Ask yourself, When I spend time with this person, do I typically leave feeling more capable, inspired, and clear about my goals? Or do I feel drained, confused, and less confident about my direction in life? Genuine relationships, according to Stoic philosophy, should challenge both people to become better versions of themselves. This doesn't mean every interaction needs to be serious or focused on self-improvement, but the overall pattern should involve mutual support for each person's highest aspirations rather than enabling weakness, complaining, or destructive behaviors. The second evaluation examines character alignment and values compatibility. Consider, does this person demonstrate the kind of character qualities I want to develop in myself? And do they encourage me to act according to my values, or do they pressure me to compromise my principles? The Stoics believed that we inevitably become more like the people we spend significant time with, whether consciously or unconsciously. If someone consistently demonstrates dishonesty, cruelty, self-pity, or other character traits you're working to overcome in yourself, spending time with them makes your own character development significantly more difficult. The third criterion assesses reciprocity and genuine care. Reflect. Is this person genuinely interested in my well-being and growth? Or are they primarily focused on what I can provide for them in terms of attention, support, or resources? Authentic relationships involve mutual investment where both people care about each other's success and happiness. One-sided relationships, where you consistently give more emotional energy, time, or support than you receive, often indicate that the other person views you as a resource rather than a friend. Understanding why this systematic evaluation process works requires recognizing several principles about human psychology and social influence that the Stoics understood through careful observation of human nature. First, your social environment shapes your thoughts and behaviors more powerfully than most people realize. When you regularly interact with people who complain, blame others for their problems, or avoid taking responsibility for their lives, you unconsciously absorb these patterns of thinking and behavior. Conversely, relationships with people who take ownership, focus on solutions, and work toward meaningful goals naturally encourage similar attitudes in yourself. The implementation of this relationship evaluation follows a specific protocol that balances honest assessment with compassion and wisdom. Once per week, during your evening reflection time, choose one significant relationship in your life and work through the 3 criteria systematically. Write down your honest answers rather than simply thinking about them, as this creates clarity and prevents self-deception. The goal isn't to judge other people harshly or to expect perfection from your friends and family members. Instead, you're developing conscious awareness of how different relationships affect your ability to live according to your values and pursue your most important goals. For relationships that consistently fail this evaluation, the Stoic approach emphasizes gradual boundary adjustment rather than dramatic confrontation or immediate termination. You might choose to spend less time with people who drain your energy while investing more time in relationships that support mutual growth. You could redirect conversations away from complaining and toward problem-solving when possible. Sometimes, honest communication about your observations and needs can transform a problematic relationship into a supportive one. The modern applications of this ancient practice extend into every area of social connection where your character development and life satisfaction matter. Professional relationships benefit from this systematic evaluation, helping you identify colleagues who support your career growth versus those who encourage office politics or mediocrity. Family relationships, while often non-negotiable in terms of basic connection, can be managed more skillfully when you understand which family members support your best self and which require careful boundary management. Romantic relationships especially benefit from this evaluation process, as intimate partnerships have enormous influence on your daily happiness and long-term character development. To track your progress with this relationship evaluation habit, maintain a record of which relationships you've assessed and what patterns you discover over time. Notice whether certain types of people consistently drain your energy or inspire you, and pay attention to how changes in your social connections affect your overall mood, motivation, and progress toward your goals. This meta-awareness helps you become more intentional about cultivating relationships that align with your values and aspirations. The relationship evaluation test represents the Stoic understanding that friendship is one of life's greatest goods when approached with wisdom, but can become a source of suffering and character degradation when approached carelessly. When you consistently choose to invest your limited time and energy in relationships that support mutual growth, character development, and genuine care, you create a social environment that makes virtue easier to practice and wisdom easier to develop. This systematic approach to relationship quality naturally prepares you for the next transformative practice, learning to convert every obstacle and setback into an opportunity for character development and practical wisdom, a skill that changes how you experience challenges throughout your life. Habit 7. Problem reframing practice. You're sitting in your Boston office cubicle, staring at an email that just shattered your entire career plan. The promotion you've been working toward for 18 months has been given to someone else, someone with less experience and fewer qualifications than you possess. Your immediate supervisor explains that budget constraints have eliminated your position entirely, and you'll need to either accept a lateral move to a different department or consider other opportunities outside the company. Your heart pounds as you read the words that seem to invalidate months of overtime, sacrificed weekends, and professional development efforts that now feel completely wasted. This moment represents one of life's most challenging tests, the kind of situation that reveals whether you've developed genuine wisdom or whether you're still at the mercy of circumstances beyond your control. Every person faces these career setbacks, relationship disappointments, health challenges, and financial obstacles that initially appear to block progress toward important goals. The difference between people who emerge from such experiences stronger and wiser versus those who become bitter and defeated lies not in the nature of the obstacles themselves, but in their ability to transform problems into opportunities for character development and practical learning. Marcus Aurelius, who faced military campaigns, political conspiracies, family tragedies, and the enormous pressures of governing a vast empire, developed what may be the most powerful psychological tool in human history for handling life's inevitable difficulties. In Meditations, Book 5, he articulated a principle that modern cognitive psychology has validated as one of the most effective methods for building resilience and maintaining mental health during challenging periods. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This wasn't philosophical optimism or positive thinking, but a practical method for converting every obstacle into raw material for wisdom, strength, and character development. The specific practice that Marcus Aurelius used, which you can implement immediately when facing any significant challenge, involves a systematic 4-step reframing process that transforms your relationship with problems from victimhood to empowerment. This ancient technique works by engaging what modern neuroscientists call cognitive flexibility, the brain's ability to shift perspectives and find alternative interpretations of events that initially seem purely negative. The 4 steps work together as a complete system for obstacle conversion that builds stronger character while often revealing practical solutions that weren't visible from your initial emotional reaction. The first step focuses on acceptance and accurate assessment. Ask yourself, what exactly has happened here? Stripped of my emotional interpretation and future projections. This question requires you to separate facts from feelings, actual events from imagined consequences, and current reality from catastrophic thinking. In the job loss example, the facts might be that your position was eliminated due to budget constraints and you need to find new employment. The emotional interpretation might include feelings of betrayal, failure, or fear about future security. But these feelings, while valid, are separate from the actual circumstances you need to address. The second step examines hidden opportunities and potential benefits. Consider, what possibilities does this situation create that wouldn't have existed otherwise, and what skills or character qualities will I need to develop to handle this challenge effectively? This isn't about forcing artificial positivity onto genuinely difficult circumstances, but about genuinely exploring how obstacles often redirect us toward better opportunities or force us to develop capabilities we wouldn't have cultivated during comfortable periods. Perhaps losing your current job opens possibilities for career changes you've been considering but were too comfortable to pursue. Or maybe handling this challenge will build confidence and problem-solving skills that serve you throughout your professional life. The third step identifies specific learning and growth opportunities. Reflect, what is this situation teaching me about myself, about life, or about skills I need to develop, and how can I use this experience to become wiser and stronger? Every significant challenge contains lessons that aren't available during easy periods of life. Maybe you'll discover reserves of resilience you didn't know you possessed, learn about professional networking and job search strategies, develop better financial planning habits, or gain a clearer understanding of what you actually want from your career versus what you thought you wanted. The fourth step converts insight into action planning. Ask, what specific steps can I take right now to move forward constructively, using what I've learned from this reframing process? This question transforms philosophical understanding into practical next steps that demonstrate your commitment to growth rather than just intellectual acceptance of difficult circumstances. Your action plan might include updating your resume, reaching out to professional contacts, researching new career possibilities, or developing skills that make you more valuable in the job market. Understanding why this reframing process works requires grasping several principles about human psychology and resilience that the Stoics discovered through careful observation of their own experiences with adversity. When you initially encounter obstacles, your brain's threat detection system activates, narrowing your attention and reducing your ability to see creative solutions or alternative perspectives. The four-step reframing process deliberately interrupts the stress response and engages your higher-order thinking abilities, expanding your perception of possibilities and options that weren't visible during your initial emotional reaction. The implementation of this problem reframing practice follows a specific protocol that maximizes its effectiveness while respecting the reality that some situations genuinely require time for emotional processing before constructive action becomes possible. When you encounter a significant obstacle or setback, allow yourself appropriate time for initial emotional response without trying to immediately jump into reframing. However, within 24 to 48 hours, set aside 30 minutes of focused time to work through the four-step process systematically, writing down your responses rather than simply thinking through them. The modern applications of this ancient practice extend into every area of life where obstacles and setbacks occur, which means essentially every important aspect of adult experience. Professional challenges like job loss, failed projects, or difficult colleagues become opportunities to develop career resilience and discover work that better aligns with your values and capabilities. Relationship difficulties, whether romantic partnerships, family conflicts, or friendship challenges, become chances to practice communication skills, establish healthy boundaries, and clarify what you actually want from intimate connections. Health problems, financial setbacks, and other personal crises become catalysts for developing self-reliance, discovering inner strength, and building practical life skills that serve you throughout future challenges. To track your progress with this reframing habit, maintain a record of significant obstacles you've encountered and how successfully you applied the four-step process to transform problems into opportunities. Notice patterns in the types of challenges that you handle most and least effectively, and pay attention to how your overall resilience and problem-solving confidence develop over time. The goal isn't to eliminate emotional responses to difficult situations, but to develop the ability to move from initial reaction to constructive action more quickly and effectively. The problem reframing practice represents the Stoic understanding that external circumstances have far less power over your life satisfaction and success than your ability to interpret and respond to those circumstances wisely. When you consistently practice converting obstacles into opportunities for growth, learning, and character development, you develop what researchers now call anti-fragility, the capacity to become stronger through stress rather than simply surviving it. This transformative approach to handling life's inevitable difficulties naturally prepares you for mastering the final essential practice, developing superior listening skills that deepen relationships, accelerate learning, and demonstrate the kind of wisdom and humility that attracts genuine respect and connection from others. Habit 8. Listening ratio tracking. You're in the middle of your monthly team meeting in your Phoenix office, and you've been talking for the past 7 minutes straight about your project updates, ideas for process improvements, and concerns about upcoming deadlines. As you pause to take a breath, you notice that your colleagues' expressions seem glazed over, and when you ask for their input, the responses are brief and non-committal. Walking back to your desk afterward, you realize that despite being in a meeting for an hour, you know almost nothing about what your teammates are actually working on, what challenges they're facing, or what insights they might have that could help everyone succeed more effectively. This scenario illustrates one of the most common yet unrecognized obstacles to professional success, personal relationships, and continuous learning that affects millions of Americans daily. Most people dramatically overestimate how much they listen and underestimate how much they talk, creating a blind spot that limits their ability to build genuine connections, gather important information, and demonstrate the kind of wisdom and humility that others respect and trust. The ancient Stoics understood that the capacity to listen effectively was not just a social skill but a fundamental requirement for acquiring wisdom and developing the kind of character that attracts authentic relationships and meaningful opportunities. Epictetus, who understood the relationship between humility and learning more deeply than perhaps any philosopher in history, taught a principle that modern communication research has validated as one of the most reliable predictors of social influence and personal effectiveness. In his discourses, he reminded his students, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This wasn't simply advice about conversation etiquette, but a profound insight about how wisdom develops through careful attention to other people's experiences, perspectives, and knowledge, rather than through constant expression of our own thoughts and opinions. The specific practice that Epictetus taught his students which you can implement immediately to transform your relationships and accelerate your learning, involves systematic tracking of your speaking versus listening ratio during conversations and social interactions. This ancient technique works by creating conscious awareness of communication patterns that most people never examine, revealing the difference between conversations where you're genuinely seeking to understand others versus conversations where you're primarily waiting for your turn to speak. The practice develops what the Stoics called intellectual humility, the recognition that other people possess knowledge, insights, and perspectives that can enhance your understanding of yourself and the world around you. Understanding why this listening ratio tracking works requires recognizing several principles about human psychology and communication that the Stoics discovered through careful observation of social dynamics. When you're focused primarily on what you want to say next, your brain dedicates most of its processing power to formulating your response rather than fully comprehending what the other person is actually communicating. This creates the illusion of engagement while preventing genuine understanding, learning, or connection. However, when you consciously commit to listening more than you speak, your attention shifts toward understanding the other person's perspective, which typically reveals information, ideas, and opportunities that weren't available when you were primarily focused on your own contribution to the conversation. The implementation of this listening ratio tracking follows a specific protocol that builds awareness gradually while respecting the natural flow of conversations and social interactions. Begin by choosing one conversation per day where you will consciously monitor how much time you spend speaking versus listening. Use your phone's timer or simply maintain mental awareness of when you're talking versus when you're focused on understanding what others are saying. The goal is achieving a ratio where you listen approximately twice as much as you speak, which aligns with Epictetus' teaching about having 2 ears and 1 mouth. During your designated tracking conversation, practice what communication researchers call active listening, which involves several specific techniques that demonstrate genuine engagement with what others are saying. Make eye contact and use nonverbal cues like nodding to show you're paying attention. Ask follow-up questions that demonstrate you understood what was said and want to learn more. Paraphrase or summarize what you heard to confirm your understanding before adding your own perspective. Resist the urge to immediately share your own related experiences or opinions. Instead, focus on fully understanding the other person's thoughts and feelings before contributing your own ideas. The modern applications of this ancient practice extend into every area of life where communication quality affects your success and satisfaction. In professional settings, superior listening skills help you gather information that leads to better decision-making, build stronger relationships with colleagues and clients, and identify opportunities that other people miss because they're too focused on expressing their own ideas. In personal relationships, the ability to listen effectively demonstrates care and respect that deepens intimacy and trust while helping you understand what the people you care about actually need from you rather than what you assume they need. To track your progress with this listening habit, maintain a simple daily record of conversations where you consciously practice the 2-to-1 listening ratio. Rate yourself on how well you maintained focus on understanding others rather than formulating your own responses, and notice what you learned from each interaction that you might have missed if you had been primarily focused on talking. Pay attention to how people respond differently when they feel genuinely heard and understood versus when they sense you're just waiting for your turn to speak. The practice also reveals important patterns about your own communication style and social habits that can guide further development. You might discover that you talk more when you're nervous or trying to impress others, that certain topics trigger your tendency to dominate conversations, or that specific people and situations bring out either your best or worst listening abilities. This self-awareness allows you to make conscious adjustments that improve your relationships and social effectiveness over time. One of the most profound benefits of developing superior listening skills is that it demonstrates intellectual humility and genuine curiosity about others, qualities that the Stoics considered essential for wisdom development. When you consistently show interest in other people's thoughts, experiences, and perspectives, you create an environment where people feel comfortable sharing their real ideas and feelings rather than just telling you what they think you want to hear. This leads to more authentic relationships and access to information and insights that aren't available to people who are primarily focused on expressing themselves rather than understanding others. The listening ratio tracking practice also serves as preparation for handling difficult conversations and conflict situations more effectively. When disagreements arise, the person who demonstrates superior listening skills typically has significant advantages in finding solutions that work for everyone involved. By understanding other people's actual concerns, motivations, and constraints, rather than just their stated positions, you can identify creative approaches to problems that satisfy underlying needs while building rather than damaging relationships. This systematic development of listening excellence represents the Stoic understanding that wisdom comes primarily through learning from others rather than through expressing what you already know. When you consistently practice listening twice as much as you speak, you're following the same path that enabled Epictetus to develop profound insights about human nature and practical philosophy through careful attention to his students' questions, struggles, and discoveries. Moreover, this final habit creates a foundation that strengthens all the previous practices you've learned. Better listening skills help you gather information that improves your morning decision-making, understand feedback that guides your character development, and build relationships that support your long-term growth and happiness. The 8 habits work together as a complete system for daily living that transforms ancient Stoic wisdom into practical tools for modern American life. You now possess 8 powerful habits that form a complete system for transforming your daily experience through ancient Stoic wisdom. Think of these practices not as separate techniques, but as interconnected elements that strengthen and support each other throughout your day. When you begin each morning by asking how you can be excellent, you create the foundation for every other habit to build upon. The 5-minute physical challenge immediately proves to yourself that you can choose character over comfort, preparing your mind for the 3-second control check that helps you focus only on what truly matters. Consider how these habits flow together naturally through your typical day. Your virtue response formula becomes more powerful when you've already trained yourself to pause and assess control, while your evening 3 questions help you process experiences through the lens of character development. The relationship evaluation test works more effectively when you've developed superior listening skills, and your problem reframing practice draws strength from all the previous habits that have built your mental resilience and practical wisdom. This systematic approach reflects exactly how the ancient Stoics developed their own character. Marcus Aurelius didn't practice these techniques randomly or occasionally. He built them into a daily routine that began with morning reflection, continued through deliberate responses to challenges, and concluded with evening self-examination. Seneca combined physical discipline with intellectual humility, while Epictetus taught his students to integrate control awareness with virtue-based action. You're following the same proven path that enabled these philosophers to maintain wisdom and inner strength during the most difficult circumstances imaginable. The key to success with this system lies in consistency rather than perfection. Start by choosing one habit that resonates most strongly with your current challenges and practice it daily for 1 week. Once that habit feels natural, add a second practice, then a third, building gradually until you're implementing the complete system. Remember that even Marcus Aurelius struggled with these practices and wrote about his failures and recommitments. Progress matters more than perfection, and small daily improvements compound into dramatic life changes over time. Your success with these 8 habits will inspire others around you to seek the same wisdom and inner strength that you're developing. When people notice your calm response to challenges, your thoughtful approach to relationships, and your ability to find opportunity in obstacles, they'll want to understand what's changed in your life. This gives you the chance to share these ancient practices with friends, family, and colleagues who are struggling with the same modern pressures and challenges that these habits address so effectively. The journey of implementing these Stoic habits represents more than personal improvement. You're connecting with a philosophical tradition that has guided people through wars, political upheavals, personal tragedies, and every form of human challenge for over 2,000 years. When you practice these habits, you join a community of individuals throughout history who chose wisdom over impulse, character over convenience, and growth over comfort. If this video has provided value for your life and given you practical tools for daily improvement, please subscribe to the Stoic Vivu channel to receive more ancient wisdom adapted for modern living. Your subscription helps us continue creating content that transforms philosophical insights into actionable practices for contemporary challenges. Like this video if these 8 habits have inspired you to take action, and share it with anyone in your life who could benefit from developing greater resilience, wisdom, and inner strength. Your character is built one choice at a time, one habit at a time, one day at a time. The ancient Stoics understood this truth, and now you possess their proven system for daily transformation. The only question that remains is this: will you begin today, or will you choose tomorrow? Marcus Aurelius reminds us that you could be good today. The 8 habits are waiting for your commitment. Your transformed life is waiting for your action.